All right, I'm just gonna jump into this because it's hard to keep trying to do this and put it into words, and I'm doing it with all my heart. So here we go. On the bottom line, we have the once. Everything that's a single digit, whether it's in number form or letter form, and we're talking about letters here. Every letter is written in its individual symbol, and we center it. But what they represent is action in space through vibration, and not just vibration, through the information we relate to it. So we have 1 being the activation point and 9 being identified because it's literally centered here on the top and bottom. And then when we move from 9 to 10, that's literally saying this 1 is completed and we're moving up to the middle line. Like that's why J has that kind of hook here. We're moving up to this middle line at J. But I'm not going to do too much slopping up the board here. So we have 1 being an access point, 2 standing up and having the backwards C and the backwards 3, but the C would be backwards on the lowercase. 4 is literally D being over here with the C coming out. Let me turn this off. Sorry, I didn't think it would come on. It's really cold back here, so it's popping on by itself. So anyway, at C, we literally are moving over to this other side of D and then coming around to E. So in order for A to make its first movement, it had to stand up and move out. Then from this access point, it had to move over here to move out from 3 to E, or from C to that E, or from big C to that. So the top and the bottom are halfway through it, 1 and 5. So this is where we'll get into the vowels. A and E, through those, there's Adam, A-D-A, manifesting, intense. And then Eve, being that Roman numeral V, but the center of the vowels, the feminines, Eve being not just E5, V5 in Roman numeral, and then E again. So we literally have EVE being 2 E's, and ADA being 2 A's, and an M. And in gematria, M is also a D. So it's literally saying that we're activating to and from action as a manifestation, Adam. And then when Eve, E, it's already 2 any. So we're expressing 22 vitality expressing. So that's something that's nurturing because it's already expressing vitality and is expressing. Adam is literally action coming through, action manifesting. So that's the male version of Adam to Eve. When we get to the vowels, now we have A being the first, E being halfway through on the bottom line. A plus E is where we start moving up into the top line, which would be intense to oneself, but it's still represented on the bottom line because it's a one digit number. So from 5 and 1, we have 6. This middle point that made the first movement come around is ACE equals 1 plus 3 is 4 plus 5 is 9. We have 3, which is the center point of the first movement, 6, which is the first movement coming out. So the first movement finally being constant to itself again upon itself in form would be this, because the bottom line that C is here is finally filled with a 6, and it's still on the bottom. So then 7, we're still down at the bottom, or we're generating. And then 8, we're here, but it would be as if we're here at the bottom. And then I is saying this whole thing, just like A went to B to activate and then stand up. From 7 being generated in even, or severed in even, or generated and grouped. Now it's here at 8 to be identified at 9. So since it's here at 8, now we've done this. And we've represented it on all 4 sides. Because this isn't just squared this way and squared up and down, it's like a cube. How can I put it into words? I'm just going to try to keep saying. So A and E make that 6. So in the first movement, there's 4 between it and 4 between. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1 plus 4 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9. So there's 4 between only on the bottom line. After that, the first expression, which took activation through expression altogether, becomes familiar at 6. Now we're already identified. The 4 is gone. We repeat this after 26, but we'll get there. So this 4 in this 4 are literally going from 1 to 9 with all its little increments in between. So we have 1 through 5 being this halfway point, and we have 1 plus 5 equaling this. So the halfway point of 1 through 5 on itself equals this, and 1 and 5 together equal this. This having to move, we use the halfway point of the first expression to identify a form or familiarity or a force, to identify it. But in movement, it was 4. So on the bottom line only, we have A plus 4 is 5, 5 plus 4 is 9. Now we've moved that up. So the movement was 1. Coming out again is into the middle line. We're just starting there. So 10 and 11 are coming into tense and elevating. And then 12 is 2 elevating. 12, it's 2 things elevating, like B is 2 things on the bottom line. It's 2 things elevating. And then 13 is 2 things conceiving. Well, it's things conceiving, because it's not 12, it's not 213, it's 13. It's their intense. So then the reason we go between 1 and 5, 4 is the added number. Between 5 and 9, 4 is the added number. And then since this was the first expression together, we add 6 to this to get centered here, and then 6 to this to move up to any. Now this to any is as if one thing has happened after a plus symbol. So we're back to A again. So sometimes used as a vowel is E, which is 4 away from 21. In spatial reference, 29 would be to any identified. It would be, how I've said before, 25 is moving up to that middle spot at Y, vitally identifying. Z is, we don't have anything left to make symbols up here, so it's starting back over at 26. And then after 26 would be a question mark, because we started back over and we're down here with a dot, because we're talking about this circular thing up here with a question mark sign at 27. And the dot is back down here saying, okay, we started over and we're back down here, 27. So then we started over and we're back down here. Now something stood up in place. It's blank space. To any here. And then 29 is blank space with something identified in it. To any identified. And then 30 is constantly ongoing, just as it is. 31 is constantly ongoing activation. So now it's a whole new thing. So that's why it goes 4 between A and E, 4 between E and I, 4 between U and Y. But then, since we're in tense, to be familiar with the identified thing, O is what it is in tense, and U is what it is to get to twents in vowel form, because it has to be 1 past a plus sign, so it's 21 is U. They're all literally A and 5 broken are a multiple of 3. 6 is 3. I is, 6 is 2 3s. I is 3 3s. 15 is 5 3s. And 21 is 7 3s. And now when we get to 25, there's 3 between 2 and 5, but we're moving on to like a different graph. So I'm probably not going to put this one out, but I'll send it to a couple people, because I know somebody specific that will get it, at least some of it. if he goes over it. This is hard stuff to try to explain. This is like advanced stuff, but it's so hard to put into words because I already see it, and trying to put it on a board really flusters me trying to do all this scribbling. So I'll go into how things move in half steps. I can just do this right here. A is literally the access point. The half step of A's first movement is base. From base, we move out. That's the half step. From moving out, we move over to the other side. That's the half step from C to D. From coming through the doorway, we express. That's the half step symbol of D to E. From moving out to being expressed on the bottom line at E, the half step is now actually giving a symbol for the middle line moving up. The half step, or the next step up, we'll just say the next step up from F, is this thing generating from the center, G. The next step up from generating from the center is being here in the center. The next step from being here in the center is being identified in the center. The next step from being identified in the center is junctioning that center up. Now we've moved that center and we're in the middle line now at J. So the next step is moving out from J. Since we moved out here, the next step is underlining it with an L. It's what lay here. The next step out is not just what lay here, but what from manifests here. Then not from what manifests here, what is the notion here. Then not from just the notion here, it's what's going on here in the center of it. Then not just what's going on in the center of it, what's taking place in tense familiar from the center of it, from O. Then from the center of it, we also have this line coming back here to conclude this top being full. So the next move from P is this line moving out. So the next one is an R, which is, it's really hard to do R with my hands unless I do it with my arm. I hope you see what I'm saying here. It's this, the swirl, and my arm being the R. Because they had to come out of here from the center, one movement of that is this. Now, as you'll see, that was two movements from P being this, having to move out from here, and then being here. There's two movements there. That's the only one I've said two going right just yet. So Q being moving out, now R being this, and since we have all of this top included here, and this bottom sort of open, now this bottom is completely filled, and it's subjecting the idea of a reference here. That's the next movement, to subject your reference. And then from subjecting your reference, we flatten out this middle, and we flatten out the top. Boom. And that's the next movement. The next movement of this top is underlining it. Then the next movement from underlining it is vitalizing it. The next movement from vitalizing it is making it a plural-based concept. And then from the next movement, it's not just a plural-based concept, it's centered. It's what's coming through in twents. Then from not just what's coming through in twents, it's what's vitally identified in twents. And then the next movement is to take everything that was from here and here and start over. So that's the steps of one. Now A stood up, moved out. That shape here took two spots. B stood up here, moved out over to D, the movement of two. C, in capital form, it would be this. It went through a doorway of this to come out here. In lowercase form, it did this and moved around as this. In letter and number form, it did this. It had this and this, and it did that, but it's represented with coming from the bottom, being all the way extended out, in the middle, being accessed, and being turned out instead of four being up like this. So from C, the movement between is this, and then it took two to move it to the right. So D, in order for this thing to move out, it not only had to come out to the right, it had to come out and move up. So then from E, the two movement, we not only are expressing where you came out, we generated. So to generate that expression, it takes a movement of 2 to make it go right on the letters. So we have that at E, that at F, that at G. From F, we moved out from here. We generated here, but the movement of this thing coming out to be noticed after being generated took 2 movements. H from F. And then from G, we had this, now generated here. This thing that's right here is finally identified 2 movements later. H, which is here, we want to talk about this thing. It's identified here, and we've junctioned to it, the movement of 2 to identify H. The movement of this from I, we've moved it up and moved it out. The movement of 2 from I. The movement of 2 from J is this, moving out and being here as L. The movement of 2 from K is being out here, and coming from here at M. The movement of 2 from L is coming from here, manifesting here, and then being something that's on both sides balanced in the middle. From L being here, because L's already in tense, but M has manifested into tense, N is what it is, this now moment, this notion. And then from M, we came through here, and now we're ongoing in the middle. 2 movements to move M to the right, the manifestation to be ongoing. From N, it's here, and now that thing that was halfway through an N is up here now. It's moved up. Movement of 2. The movement of O moved up and comes out. The movement of P comes out and then turns into that R, with the arm being included. The movement of Q coming out from here, being established as a reference for R, moving out to here at S. Sorry, S is this way, to U. The movement of R being the reference of this top line and coming out here, so wanting to get out and wanting to reference the R active here, has now subjected an active identity and been added to any. So then S, being the active identity, added to any, an active identity added to any is a unit. To any, you move out as a unit and you become vital. To a unit, you become vital, then you become pluralized. Others know about it. To go from U, or I already did V, I'm sorry. From U, we went to V, from U to V to plural. From vital to plural to centered, or to be, because this is trying to be in the center. Now it's moved up to the center, and now the center is there. From V to X. From a plural, we're centered on it, and now it's not only centered, it's vitally identified. From X, basically the idea of being finished, we moved that idea up, or being centered on, we moved it up, and we started it over. The idea of being vitally identified, and then starting over, comes a question mark. So the movement of Y in 2s, it takes 2 to make it go right, is a question mark. The Z moving 2 would be a question mark, and then blank space. The movement of a question mark in question would be blank space, and then something here. The movement of blank space would be something here, but then that's something identified. The movement of blank space with something here is now something here identified, and then something constantly ongoing. I'm going to leave it at that, because that pattern is what continues to 90. And just like we did this with 3, 6, 9, and the reason it's 3, 6, 9 is because this is the halfway point between the first expression. This is the first familiar. To become a familiar concept, you're identified. It's like a sewing pattern. It always is. And it's not just that simple. There's so much more to it, because there's information we tie to the words and letters. Now, of course, you can ask me any questions and I will try to put them in better words, but it's easier to see when it's being used by breaking down people. But I wanted to at least get this into the minds of a few people who are taking this seriously, because the deep part of our world is so strange. It's amazing, but we've overcomplicated it with flashy lights and complicated things. It's actually quite simple to open your heart and see why we're here, to find moral value, to find love, real love, true love for compassionate humanity, not true love for all the things I can eat and all the fun things I can do. That's not love. That's just infatuation. Most people are stuck on that. So I'm going to leave it at this, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.